be part of this generation where we want to undo trauma, but not unlearn tradition, right? And yeah, and how do you do that, right? Because I think sometimes when we're wounded by family or by our moms, we want to throw everything away. And it's like, no. Like, we don't have to throw everything away. There are still a lot of things that our identity and culture, it comes from mom and it comes from dad, and those are good things. But how do you separate, right?
Thanks, Kim, for coming to interview with us today. Let's start with the origins. Where were you born? Tell me what that place was like, etc.
So I'm really international. I've lived in 5 different countries. So I was actually born in the Philippines, in Manila. And I lived there until I was about 2. And then my family moved to London. That's the earliest place I remember living. And that was short, like 6-month, 9-month stint. And then Singapore for 14 years. Then they moved to Australia. And then I came here and they were back in Singapore. So citizenship-wise, I'm Singaporean. And that is where I consider like my place of like growing up, because I was there like from 3 to 17. Yeah.
Wow. Really the more formative years. Yeah. Tell me about what that was like growing up in Singapore.
Singapore's great. I feel like we are the most delicious place in the world because we have the most amazing food, right? I describe us like Asian hobbits. You know, we eat 7 times a day. No joke. Like breakfast, mid-morning snack, lunch, tea, dinner, supper, and then if you're still awake, midnight snack. Yes, we have food from all over the world. I know everybody raves about Thai food here in the States, but I think Singaporean food is another level. We're constantly feuding with Malaysia on who has the better food, but yeah. It is super vibrant city. I say that I'm a definite city girl. It's like New York City, only really clean. One of my friends has described Singapore as like Asian Wakanda, which I fully agree with because we are very modern. We've got super high tech.
How did you relate to your mom? Did you feel like connected with her? Were there things that y'all connected on?
I think I did feel connected. Well, I felt connected. I knew my mom loved me, but I also felt disconnected at the same time. And I think part of the reason why was, so like I said, my mom's really beautiful. She looked like her mom, and my aunt and her daughter, they all looked alike. And I apparently came out looking like my dad, to the point where the story is when I came out, I was born, my grandmother scolded my mom for not looking enough photos of herself and looking at my dad's because like because I didn't end up looking like that, I actually like didn't think I was like pretty like my mom, you know what I mean? So there was and then I was also kind of a tomboy, which was like also another thing. So yeah, it was like I feel like we always had a good relationship, but like it was just always highlighted to me when I was a little girl that I did look like ironically, now that I'm older, people say I look like my mom. But when I was young, like literally they'd be like, oh yeah, she just had ugly duckling syndrome, because everyone was just like, yeah, she's like ugly baby. Like I was just
Speaking of your mom, how did she show love? What did that look like for her?
My mom is a big acts of service person, which is really interesting because technically the way we grew up, she didn't actually have to be that person. I grew up I think by American standards, pretty affluent, right? Like grew up with in-house maids, had a nanny until I was 7 or 8 for me and my brother, and then a housekeeper. And then after that, we got older. My mom was like, we just need the live-in maid. And yet at the same time, I don't ever feel like I've seen my mom really sit down. She is, I don't even want to say neat free. Like there has to be a term that's more than that, because my mother's cleanliness level is that of like a 5-star hotel.
Wow.
Like, no joke.
Wow.
Like open her china cabinet, no dust type person, like insanely clean and tidy. So she's always fussing about something, you know, like I would say probably her secondary one, probably words of affirmation, but like, and I know, you know, she likes to spend time with like the family and stuff like that, but she's always doing something. Yeah.
How is your relationship like now? What is that? Is it?
I think it is close. Like, it's different for me because I have lived on the other side of the world from my parents since I was 17, right? So I think compared to a lot of people, I left home at a much earlier age. So I think in one respect, I have been used to being on my own and taking care of myself for a long time. And also when I first came here, right, everybody now like are all like, oh, like, you use FaceTime. And I'm like, dude, when I moved here, we had to call my parents. I had to buy something called a calling card, right? And each card would give you like 90 minutes, right? And so I think I maybe spoke to them on the phone 4 times in 1 year. The rest of the time would just be emails. And then as technology like increased, right, now it's like I video call them once a week. We usually chat for like 30 minutes to an hour. We have like our family like WhatsApp chat and things like that. And then of course, like if I get to see them in person, then we're definitely spending time. So I feel like we've always been close in that they always know if like I'm dating somebody or like, so I feel like we're fairly open there, but then also it's different in that I can't just be like, oh, I'll just go see mom this weekend, or yeah, it doesn't happen like that. Yeah.
For sure. Do you feel like there are things that you would like your mom to know about you that perhaps she doesn't? It seems like y'all are pretty open about, your life with her. So
Yeah, we are. I think my mother is a perfectionist. So growing up, I think it was harder to feel like you can just be and that flaws are okay. You know what I mean? And so I feel like in a lot of respects, like she does know me as a person, but sometimes I would sit there and I go like, hey, I don't think I care about some of the things that you care about that you think really matter. Yeah, so that can be a little interesting.
have you ever voiced those things, or is that more that lives in your head? You're like, oh, I don't really care about this.
You know, I feel like sometimes I've tried to, but then again, like, it's like your Asian mom's like, it's like exactly. And then also at the end of the day, right? Like I feel like my mom's super strong personality. Um Super strong personality. So a lot of times I'm just kind of like, okay, like
Reflecting back on your experiences with her, is there anything that you wish she would say to you, or you'd like to hear from her? Or anything she's ever said surprising to you?
I think that's the other thing, right? I think growing up westernized parents, my parents have lived in like England and the Philippines and things like that. So that was the other thing when I came here was my family freely says I love you all the time, like white people. Like, but the thing is, a lot of my Singaporean friends, also their parents are like that. And then I came here, and Asian Americans would look at me like I grew a second head. What I said, right? But at the same time, like I think my mom, I think her perfectionism shows up a lot in appearances, right? How your house is kept, how you are put together. And sometimes I'm like, it would be nice to be like, just as you are. It's okay to show your flaws, kind of thing. She used to chase me around the house with lip gloss when I would go home because I am only looking like this because it's a video interview. You know me. I'm usually like t-shirt, leggings, no makeup. And my mother would be like, I'd be going out and she'd be like, lip gloss brightens your face. And I'm like, Ma, I don't. Just meeting friends. Like, who cares? Mother-daughter relationship is always very interesting, right? Like, I think it's where we're built up. It's also at the same place where you can get wounded the most, right? Because of things that your mom, I don't even think it's intentional a lot of times, right? Like, and so it's one of those things where, like, I know for me as an adult now, having to like now look at my mom and be like, you're just human, man. You're doing the best you can, right? That's also like a very revelatory thing because when your parents, when you're a kid, mom is everything, right? Mom is the world. And then you go through this journey of like growing up and then being like, okay, maybe they go from being like cool to being lame. And And then you get to this age, and then it's like you had your own history, you had your own trauma, and and then I think also our generation right now, we're very fortunate in that we want to talk about it and we want to deal with it.
Yep.
And my parents' generation, they didn't, right? Especially in Asian culture, it's like,
100%.
what do you mean talk to a counselor? Like that. Like it's worse in Asia, right? It's worse in Singapore.
Yeah.
And so I think that is kind of an interesting place also to be part of this generation where we want to undo trauma, but not unlearn tradition, right? And yeah, and how do you do that, right? Because I think sometimes when we're wounded by family or by our moms, we want to throw everything away, and it's like, no, like we don't have to throw everything away. There are still a lot of things that our identity and culture, it comes from mom and it comes from dad, and those are good things. But how do you separate, right?